Just invest in your soft skills. Technical skills, you can go on and on and on and learn and learn, and you will still learn. But invest in yourself, invest in your technical skills, in your communication skills, self-confidence, and all the other rest.
Eloquens, the leading digital marketplace where you can share, discover, and download best practices from around the world. Our authors have published smart models and frameworks in domains of finance, strategy, marketing, and so much more. In this series, we sit down with the authors who drive our platform forward.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is Rishi from Eloquens.com, and you're tuned in to the Eloquens author interview series. Today, I'm joined by Hedieh Kianyfard, an expert in financial modelling with particular expertise in project finance. Hi, Hedieh. How are you?
Hi, thanks, Rishi. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. And of course, it's our pleasure to have you on. We've got plenty to talk about in the realm of financial modelling and project finance, of course. But before we dive into some of your best practices offered on your Eloquens channel, perhaps just provide us with a brief insight into your background, career history, professional achievements, and also some of your current roles and activities now.
Rishi, it's been now more than 2 decades that I'm working, as a financial modeler, investment appraiser analyst, and I studied economics, and I was very much interested in development economics. And while doing my, PhD, during my PhD studies, I started, thinking about more kind of like applied, uh, you know, kind of instead of doing, I was interested in research as well, but for me was I really wanted to do something more practical, and I took courses also in cost benefit analysis, investment appraisal, risk analysis. And during those courses, I understood the importance of project appraisal and filtering of different projects, the development impact of it. And I remember one of the professors, said a phrase which really, kept in my mind. Oh, I always, think of it. And he said that development is nothing but a series of good projects to be implemented, and the last one is preventing bad projects from happening. And so that's why during this time, my PhDs, I decided to really devote my career in project appraisal and cost benefit analysis. And I started with trainings. I was training many organizations, as part of a consulting company. I was in the training of investment appraisal, cost benefit analysis. And then I started working as a consultant for an African Development Bank for a couple of years. And that's where I was exposed, to a number of projects. I was working for the private sector of the bank. And so as a financial modeler, my role was to review financial models. And that's where I really understood, the what project appraisal is. And it really, the exposure was just great. And since then, I'm working as a financial modeler in a number of transactions. I was very privileged to be part of the appraisal team of many successful projects in Africa, like the Henry Conan Bedier project. Those who have been into Abidjan, most probably they have passed through this bridge. And, hydro project, another hydro project in Côte d'Ivoire, and Rwanda power project, and many other projects.
Wow, it's very interesting to hear about your experience at the African Development Bank and working on projects like in Côte d'Ivoire and Rwanda, just because of the development and growth potential in the future. I guess in terms of that, what's some of the most interesting aspects of working on projects in countries like Rwanda, and have you found anything new or exciting compared to other developments?
Well, the interesting about working in projects in I mainly did, when in Africa I did many power projects. And as I said, with my background from economics, seeing the development impact of these projects when you look at them, it's just, incredible. And project finance is a transaction that really, it's like when it is well structured, it's a really win-to-win situation for all the stakeholders. And when you see that that's why I love project finance, because when you're working in project finance still, the dynamic of it, you as a financial model especially, you are building a tool, which is a financial model, which is going to be used by all the stakeholders that are involved in the project. Governments is going to use it if you have a tariff that is with the government, a concession. Lenders will use it for their appraisal. Sponsors use it to communicate with lenders and to negotiate their different contracts. EPC, other contractors will also use it to, evaluate and quantify their liquidated damages and many other things within their contracts. So, being a financial modeler and being, no matter where, if you are a financial modeler in any transaction and you're not just, maybe we will talk about it later, your role is beyond just building the tool and building the model mechanic, but as a financial modeler, you have the possibility to go and negotiate and interact with all these stakeholders, then it's just really an incredible adventure. Every project, is like a new journey.
I can imagine, especially in Africa where you have such great development, as I said before, and massive potential to grow in the future. But yes, indeed, as you said, we'll touch base on the role of the financial modeler later on, including the skills required to succeed. But before we do that, please just let us in as to what made you pursue excellence in financial modeling. I understand that you've also written a book called The Financial Model Detective. And perhaps briefly just describe what the book entails, its purpose, and its kind of target audience.
Sure. Regarding your first question, excellence is just excellence in such a big word, so I think we are all in search of excellence, and I can never say that I have reached that. What I did in my work is that I choose a very specific niche, which is the project finance modeling. And so I try to, bring my expertise around this very small niche, and that maybe helped me to kind of advance in the field that I am. But I am learning every day. I'm learning, especially with this tool that we have, which is Excel for building models. Even in terms of the mechanics, you can never say Excel. And so that is the case. I'm still learning, and every project is specific. As I said, when you enter in a project, it has its own specificities. So that's why, reaching excellence, it comes, with time, with new projects, and you just aim for it, and you enjoy, for sure you enjoy, also along the way of this path of excellence. And yes, so when I told you I was working for the African Development Bank for a couple of years, and when I was assigned to this job, my main maybe task was to evaluate and review sponsors' financial models. So we were a team of financial modelers. We were in the African Development Bank as consultants. So we were reviewing all the financial models that we were receiving from the sponsors, and we had to decide whether we advise the bank to maintain and adopt the model or to just rebuild them from scratch. So most of the time we were reviewing the models, and sometimes we were also building financial models. So during the time when I was reviewing these financial models, I realized that after a while I'm basically following a certain pattern. Every time I open the model, there are specific things that I go through every time. So I put together a checklist for myself of things that I need to verify in each project that I receive. And then later on, I extended it into this book, which is the Financial Model Detective book. And what I love about the book is the last, actually, the annex. The annex, what I did, I put, I think, 1,000 questions, typical questions that you might come across when you're reviewing someone else's financial model, and I categorize them by, type, like revenues, question regarding revenues, question regarding OPEX, debt, and different aspects of any project finance deal. And this, I still use it myself. Sometimes when I'm reviewing models, I go back and I check this question. So it's like everything else in my life, I also try to make it very practical.
Of course, of course. On your last point, I'm glad you actually mentioned practicality, because learning content is obviously very important, but the application of this content, I think, is the most important. And on that note, in terms of your book, is it suitable for anyone to just pick up, or is a prior knowledge of financial modeling required?
The answer is no. This book is not for beginners. This book is for someone who is like started working, in project finance transactions. Okay, not so it's really specific to project finance. And this person's task is to review financial models and or just work with someone else's financial model. Okay, so that's really, as I said, specific to project finance, and you really need to have background about project finance. So I'm not teaching project finance in this book at all. It's just for a help and a kit for someone who is reviewing someone else's project finance model.
Okay, got you, got you. So this book is sort of more based on your niche, which is project finance. And I think it's important actually, because sometimes books on modeling can be quite vague and wordy, whereas having a specific topic in mind, as you've done, can actually be beneficial. I guess this book is mainly for professionals looking to further improve their knowledge and to delve into another topic of financial modeling, in this case, project finance. But just take it back to your Eloquens channel briefly. And you currently have a range of best practices available for download, from models for personal use to project finance for renewables and even small businesses. So I guess please just take some time to describe some of these best practices available for those who are listening and available to download right now on your Eloquens channel.
Well, I joined Eloquens from the beginning, like the beginning days of Eloquens. I was like one of the first authors, and I enjoyed it from the beginning. And I'm still using it as one of my main tools when I'm publishing materials online. I always go through my Eloquens channel. And so I have up to now, I have a couple of comprehensive project finance models, specifically in hydro, solar, wind, in both French and English. And apart from that, I also have a profit plan for a yoga studio, because that's my sister. She's a yoga teacher. So I made a business model for her, and I published it as well on Eloquens, my Eloquens channel. And I have the remaining materials are basically teaching materials, like templates, teaching the principles of project finance through templates. So it's divided by type, and they come with a manual which explains the concept. And then there is also a YouTube video that I link it to the page, together with, and sometimes I also have, if needed, an Excel template that comes together with these materials.
Fantastic. And I do urge anyone interested in financial modeling or project finance to go and check out Hedieh's channel. The numbers really speak for themselves, with over 40 best practices and over 6,000 downloads already on your channel. I guess on this note, from all of your best practices, what would you say is your main value proposition that is, I guess, common among all of them? For example, models for small businesses like a yoga studio can be really helpful,
Exactly.
but also your project finance models are helpful for those who have expertise in that area.
Rashid, I can tell you about the feedback that I received from my users, and most of the time, regarding the complete project finance models, the feedback that I receive is that the model is very well structured and designed. And another thing that I also observe is that because I have two characteristics. One is that I am lazy. So when I do something, I try to do it in a way that, I don't need to repeat myself. So it's going to be, I bring some level of flexibility in my models that so that, it's going to kind of facilitate the update of models. Like, for example, to give you an example, I know from the beginning that maybe, when you're starting, appraising a project at the beginning, you don't need that much detail. You need maybe one tranche of senior debt, for example. But because I know that, as we progress with the project, one tranche of debt might not be sufficient. You might have two lenders, you might be negotiating with 2, 3, 4 lenders, and each of them, maybe some of the terms will be the same, like the tenor, but maybe the interest rates will not be the same. Maybe some of the fees that they charge will not be the same. So you will need to at some point introduce another tranche of debt. So from the beginning, I try to at least, provide like 2 tranches of debt so that the user has the possibility to, introduce these different tranches of debt. So that's why that's one of the things that I think is important, and I also apply it in my models. Regarding the teaching materials, I think because they are coming from my everyday expenses, day-to-day, experiences, like, and challenges. Like, for example, if today I am in a working in a project and we are at a stage where we are negotiating the tariff, so I'm building a tariff mechanism in my models. At the same time, I think about how I can also produce a template out of this so that I can share it on my Eloquens channels. So they are very practical, and they are very based on these things that I come across in my job on everyday basis.
Fantastic. Again, we go back to this point of practicality, and it's something that we can't stress enough, because it means that those who are looking at your models and looking at your best practices are able to manipulate them to their own individual needs. Perhaps it's not an exact match for their business, but they can definitely manipulate them in a way that will suit them, and they're able to do this from your models, which is very, very important. With the models you provide, the majority, if not all of them, are done via Excel, as is the case with most financial modelers. And often in school, university, and then in the workplace, we're constantly reminded about the importance of Excel. But why do you think teaching and learning financial models through Excel is so important for success in the field and in the future?
Well, again, we are back to this world flexibility, flexibility in terms of Excel. That's what everybody loves about it, because, the world of finance and project finance modeling, the finance itself, it's very creative. So every day the industry is coming up with new instruments, with new way of doing things, with new things. And every project is also specific. There are things that, you can I myself, I always start with a template, because I already, I have, different templates for different type of technologies. For example, hydro, wind, they all have, specific things. So I create templates, and I start with a template, of course, but then as you progress with the project, there are things that needs to be changed. So I take my template, but at the same time, I can also manipulate it. So that's what I always tell to my users, and I tell them that, okay, so for example, this template is good for this until this stage of the project. After that, you need to have the capacity within your team to manipulate this template and to understand it. So that's very important, to have, the understanding on how to manipulate the tool. If not, at some point, it will become redundant, and we see that in many organizations. So I always say, invest in a good financial model and in a good financial modeler. These are the very important things. And learning project finance through Excel, is, and the importance of it to me is really the importance of a financial model in a transaction, which is also something that is, of course, a project finance model is an Excel-based tool, but it's one of the most important project documents. There are many of the project documents that needs to be created during the appraisal, and they're all going to be like, contractual and documented in the contracts. And the financial model is one of them. And not only financial model takes the inputs from all aspects of the project. Your financial model contains all the technical parameters, contains all the legal issues that you'll be dealing with. Most of them, they are those that are commercial, the commercial legal aspects of the project. It will need to include all the contracts that you have with your contractors. It will need to be aligned with the fiscal and tax assumptions of the country where your project is operating. So imagine, as a financial modeler, you need to have access to all these project documents in order to produce a tool that can be used with for within the different stakeholders and for these different purposes.
Definitely, definitely. And again, like a word I'd like to highlight that you mentioned is flexibility. I think even from my limited use of Excel at the moment, I can definitely see that its flexibility in terms of being able to do various different things and model different things is extremely important. Just moving on slightly in terms of your Eloquens channel content specifically, what are some of the advantages that people can expect to see when using your various different templates and courses available?
Regarding the financial model, complete financial models that I have, they're a good starting point. They're a very good starting point for someone who wants to start building a financial model for a transaction. So I think it's a good starting point, because it has the main components, the typical generic components of a deal. Maybe the person, once they have the model, they still need to maybe change the technical parameters and add or deduct some of the things that are there. But in general, it is comprehensive, and it can take them up to one stage. But as I said, there is always a need for manipulation and changes as they progress. Regarding the teaching materials, as I said, because they are practical, and I put a lot of effort in preparing a manual together with the Excel file that I prepare. So, and for me, the advantage is really in that manual or the video that comes together with the Excel. Because I explain as well the concepts. So for someone who wants to learn, they can just go and watch the video, read the manual, and then also look at the templates. And it's also good for someone, for example, someone is already has a financial model, and but it's all of a sudden the person needs to build a debt service reserve account into his model and his or her model. So she can just take one of the templates that I have and insert it into the model and adopt it basically. So it's like modules. That's how I see a financial model. Is like a puzzle. So within Eloquens we provide the different pieces of the logo, and they can just take them and build it, insert it into their own tool and, use it for their own purposes.
Definitely, definitely. Again, flexibility is the name of the game. I guess circumstances may be different with each business, project, or person, and external situations can definitely influence models. We're all very, very much aware of this following the pandemic, and having a model or a course that is adaptable and adjustable even through the toughest of economic downturns can be very, very useful and can ultimately be the difference in saving a business or a project from failing. And in terms of your work, what would you say is the main aim for your content, and who can really benefit from your content? Do they require a pre-existing knowledge of the industry and project finance, or is it more of a just go from the start?
My aim is to, with the project finance, the complete project finance templates, is, as I said, is for someone who wants to start appraising a project and has a need to build a model for the project, and just need a starting point, a starting model. So it's good for them. In terms of the teaching materials, I would say it's good for someone who's starting in the business of project finance or wants to learn the different aspects of project finance and also project finance modeling, understand the concept and also understand the building of it into the models. And also because I remember when I started, with the African Development Bank, although I was teaching many things, there were still many things that I learned by doing. So when I started working, there were things that I didn't know and I learned by doing. So during that time, it's a very difficult, I always tell people when they ask me, so what do you recommend? I am an engineer, I am a lawyer, I want to learn project finance. Do you think I should go and get a master's? I say, you have already done all your studies. If you have the possibility, just go and do the job and learn by doing. Of course, you need to have some background of, what it is. But, it's the learning happens by doing. And it's happened to me as well. I learned many things while I was working at the African Development Bank, and I'm still learning. And I used a lot of templates. So I was learning from the financial models that I was receiving. And at the same time, I learned from, I remember at the time, there was a company called Corality, which is now called Mazars. They were bought by Mazars. They're part of Mazars. So they were providing templates at the time, and I was using their templates, and I learned a lot from them. And then I discovered Professor Edward Botmer. He has a website called edbotmer.com, and I learned a great deal from him as well. He's also one of the famous authors on Eloquens. Edward Botmer, and I learned a lot from him and his templates as well. So I hope the same thing happens to people as well when they download my materials. I hope it can help them, to understand the concepts and also apply it into their project finance models.
Definitely. I think anyone who downloads and uses your content will find it extremely useful. Templates, I've found that from professionals such as yourself with over a decade in the game, are invaluable to an entrepreneur just getting started on a new project. And yes, of course, Edward Bodmer is one of our most esteemed authors on Eloquens, and the fact that you learned from him and now others will learn from you really proves that our motto of don't reinvent the wheel, but learn from someone else actually does work in the real world. And from learning, those learning from you, what would you say the most important skills are when trying to become a financial modeler?
Of course, you need, because sometimes, I see that in practice, financial modelers are treated as, even they found a term for it, they call it sometimes like spreadsheet engineers, So that's why you of course you need to have the skills. You need to know Excel, you need to be, you need to know a certain level of Visual Basic, which is a language behind Excel. You also need that. There are things, the technical skills that you need to have. However, if you want to become a financial modeler who can also negotiate contract, then you need to really work on your soft skills. And communication is one of them. And I not only think that, working on your skills, your personal skills, communication, especially communication skills, it's not going to help you, when you're dealing with people. It's also going to help you to build tools that can better communicate with your audience, because you have this understanding of human communication and human perception. So it's really going to help you to understand how to build and structure your financial models, because basically financial model is a tool that will be used for the communication between different people. As I said, when they are sitting and negotiating a contract, they will refer to your financial model, okay? So if you build a model that is flexible enough, that can accommodate all these stakeholders' perspective, then, they have a better tool for communication. They are all, I always say, they are all referring to the same cells, to the same rows within a financial model, and it can help them, negotiate a better contract. In terms of your tool, it needs to be fast enough so that these people, when they are sitting in a meeting, live meeting, they can run sensitivities and scenarios while they are discussing and negotiating all these contracts. So when you are building a model or when you're working, with a financial model, these are the things that you need to consider as technical skills. You need to understand how to make your model simple enough so that everyone can use it, and also flexible enough so that it can accommodate these different aspects of project finance.
Indeed, I'm glad you touched on the soft skills such as communication, as it may seem like a simple skill, but it's often overlooked, especially in the finance world. And as you said, technicals are important, but anyone can learn those with time, whereas learning soft skills requires more practical application on a daily basis to become more comfortable in stressful situations as well. From my perspective, someone who's unfamiliar with the intricacies of financial model, I would be worried about the complexity of a model itself, as would other team members and even executives. So how do you go about keeping your model simple enough to understand, but complex enough to cover every aspect of the project in sufficient detail? How do you go about doing this process? And then do you have specific things that you do in order to achieve this?
That's a very good point, but complexity is the relative term, it depends on the transaction. You might be working on a transaction which needs a level of complexity, and complexity means different things to different people. For example, for me, who is a financial modeler, and I've been working with financial model for years, I see, a model differently than someone who opens just the model for the first time and sees a pop-up menus and all that and might be afraid. So even a model that to me seems simple might be complex in another eye, okay? And also sometimes you cannot avoid complexity because the transaction itself is complex. But as you said, there is an art of balancing between flexibility and simplicity, because there is a trade-off. Of course you want to, for example, if I want to sell on my Eloquens channel a fully flexible financial model, a financial model that can set the tariff, a financial model that can size the debt, that can scope the debt, that can, and also I can also think of a financial model that can accommodate different technologies, hydro, solar, gas powered project, all of them within one model. I want to put that, push it in one. Of course, the model will be complex. It will be a very flexible model, but it will be very complex in terms of formulas, calculations, because with flexibility comes as well complexity. So that's why, as a financial modeler, because you have this in mind that you want to provide a simple model, you need to balance these two. Maybe you need to that's what I do, that maybe I have one model which only is used to set the tariff, and then another model which doesn't have that mechanism for tariff setting, but it is just, to get the equity IRR, the debt ratios, and the debt metrics. So these are the things that you need to balance when you are providing this tool, and really make sure that complexity, that's one of the in the standards of financial modeling. One is simplicity, simplicity, one of the rules. Always, balance your flexibility and simplicity in your financial models. Because remember, these projects, these financial models will be audited by auditors. So having a more complex model will not only increase the cost of audits, will also be more prone to errors, So that's the thing. That's why you need to be very careful when building, very flexible model. It has happened to me in the past that, I was working on a model which was very complex with like thousands of lines of macros with a copy and paste, which was taking 5 minutes to run. However, it was a very flexible model, but it was impossible to work with. So we call them sometimes in the financial modeling jargon, black boxes. So these black boxes, sometimes you need to rebuild them from scratch, although the person building it has spent a lot of time and money maybe building it.
Okay, so balance and flexibility is what's very important. I guess these 2 points also tie in with your point on the value of communication. Being able to communicate effectively with all team members about the model during negotiations is an ability to be flexible and to be balanced between these negotiations when dealing with a high pressure situation with deadlines and executives. And just coming back to the users of your content, do you have a wider target audience in mind for your content, and who else can benefit from your models that you produce?
Yes, I would like to. I recently got a number of people contacting me coming from different backgrounds, like lawyers and engineers, who are also people who are interested in, learning financial modeling in order to use it, when they're negotiating the contracts, just to understand. Because, as I said, a financial model is a tool that is used by all the stakeholders and contains all the aspects of the project, as I explained before. So that's why, many people with different background comes and they need this tool just to understand the different aspects of the project. So I hope that, in the future, I will have also more of non-finance people who are willing to learn and can also benefit from this templates and the teaching materials that I offer. And also from the complete project finance models, I think that my aim is to also provide more of like also for small businesses profit plans. It's not going to be as comprehensive as a financial model for a mega project, but for small scale projects as well, I'm willing to provide templates. So this way, it's also a challenge for me because it's going to give me exposure to different kind of businesses as well. Yes.
Fantastic. So there really is something for everyone to learn. I'm a big fan of that personally. I think it's important that even those who are not directly involved in project finance and financial modeling at least understand the basics so that they can improve their general financial literacy. For you yourself, though, when you work on projects such as solar or hydro, where you may have not worked before or you have little to no industry experience, how difficult can it be to create the financial model and develop the project finance? And how do you overcome such issues related with a new field, an up and coming field such as solar or hydro, where there's not a lot of pre-existing information?
You see, the good thing about our work is that we are dealing, it's really about teamwork. So when I say that, as a financial modeler, when I'm assigned to a project, I always say that, I need to have exposure to all the project documents. So that's the first thing, because I know how to build a model, and I have these different platforms like Eloquens platform that I can go and get it templates and then adopt it and use it for my own needs. So that's the way it works. So you have this template that already has the components that you need to fill out the blanks. And then at the same time, you need to read the different project documents. So, for example, if tomorrow I am assigned to a hydrogen project, which is something totally new to me, I have never worked on it. At the beginning, it's going to be difficult because I don't know how hydrogen works, what are the technical details behind it. So I'm going to go to Eloquens and I'm going to try to find templates for this type of project. If I can find one, I'm going to get it and I'm going to read it, and this already is going to give me the main building blocks that I need to build for this project. Then I'm going to go to the sponsor, to my client, and I'm going to say, you need to provide me with your technical details and your O&M contract, your EPC contract. All of them you need to provide to me, or engage me in your negotiations with them so that I know the main parameters. So once I have all these details, then I can just be confident that I will never be a technical person. I can never say that I know how a solar plant works. I can never say I know, because I don't have any engineering background either. But as a financial modeler, I need to at least understand the main parameters that I need to build in my model, and also to be able to have a little understanding. But starting with the templates, that's the beauty of it, is going to solve many of the problems, because you at least know what you need to go and look for. And then the remaining, you need to get it from the project documents and to discuss with the different experts that are involved in the project.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It's about using the resources at hand to further your own knowledge that you have of the general project finance within projects such as hydrogen, but then also making sure that you learn the specifics from someone else who has previous industry experience.
Exactly.
And I guess that's why professionals such as yourself who create such templates to use are really invaluable. And following on from this, did you have some more ideas for your content in the future on your Eloquens channel? And did you have a sort of long-term vision for what you want to produce in the future?
Sure. I really want to expand my tools and go beyond, just the power, sector, which was my main focus. So I am planning to also add like financial model templates for transportation, for ports, for maybe toll bridge projects, and also like hospitals, educational centers, all these kind of projects which also need a financial model. So I will try to see if I can expand it to other sectors. The other thing is I also want to provide templates because, as I told you, I studied economics and I was working for African Development Bank. So there is this side of financial modeling, which is also the economic analysis of projects, looking at the project not just from the financial point of view, but from the country economic development impact point of view. So that also requires a different set of skills and a different type of financial models, and you can provide that as well. So I have already started publishing that. I have one tool which is just tracking the development impact indicators, but I am just planning to expand on that. And as I said, for small businesses as well. So like in the past year, I did one financial model for a friend of mine, which was into the tile manufacturing. So I found it very interesting. That's why it's something that I want to learn. And as I am learning, I might also share with my audience on my Eloquens channel. And the teaching material I will continue on project finance. I will also continue publishing the teaching materials as well.
Brilliant. A lot to unpack there and a lot going on, I guess. You mentioned models mapping economic development using different indicators, and this is something in particular that interests me as a student of economics, because I know of a lot of opportunities in this field to explore, and especially with yourself having traveled to Africa, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire for different projects. I can imagine that when you provide these models in the future, you'll be able to give a very broad perspective and an interesting perspective on these different things. And I think that's something which really interests me about financial modeling is the opportunity to travel. And I guess, in fact, not financial modeling, but more of just project finance, giving you the opportunity to travel to these different countries and experience these different things. My final question would be, if you were to have a conversation with your 18-year-old self, let's say on how to become successful in financial modeling, what advice would you give to yourself and why?
I Rishit, I actually have a blog post about, a conversation with my younger self, which when I go, maybe not 18, but because at 18 I wanted to be a professor. So that was my, dream. But then as I told you, when I started, with my PhD studies, I really wanted to, at that time, I decided to be in something which is more practical. So, but with that younger self, which just started, working, I would just say that, as you said, you pointed out, just invest in your soft skills. Technical skills, you can go on and on and on and learn, and you will still learn. But, invest in yourself, invest in your technical skills, in your communication skills, self-confidence, and all the other rest, because the technical skills you can learn, but investing in yourself, it's one of the main things that are very important in life. And yes.
Definitely, I think that advice is not just for financial modeling or project finance, but in fact, any young entrepreneurs or young aspiring individuals to take into every aspect of their life. Something I'm personally going to do myself. So thank you for that. Thank you, Hedieh, for everything today. But before we go, please let everyone know where to find you, such as your social media, your Eloquens channel, and how to contact you in the future, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are now very interested in your work, very interested in your channel, and would like to learn more from you and also keep up to date with the stuff that you're going to produce in the future.
Sure, thanks. So, as I said, my templates, I have all my templates, the project finance templates and the teaching templates. They're all on my Eloquens channel. You can just search for my name, Hedieh Kianyfard, on the platform, and you can find my channel. I also have a YouTube channel as well, where whenever I am posting something, it always comes with a video tutorial. So the video tutorials are available on YouTube. And I have a blog post as well, which also I just, and to learn about the blog post, maybe you can follow me on my LinkedIn channel. I'm also active on LinkedIn. I'm posting, about my new templates, my new tools on my LinkedIn channel.
Definitely. And I can speak for all of us here at Eloquens that we are excited to see what the future holds for you. And again, I want to reiterate that anyone interested in finance, project finance, financial modeling, etc., so go and check out Hedieh's content. It really is great. Thank you once again for joining me here today, Hedieh. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Rishi.
And thank you for tuning in, everyone. And we'll see you next time with a new expert in our Eloquens author interview series.
Thank you once again for tuning in. To stay up to date with the Eloquens author interview series, click the subscribe button below, and for more episodes like this one, view the full series on our YouTube channel. For more information on how to become a registered author and start boosting your yearly revenue, visit eloquens.com or contact our team at elise.white@eloquens.com. Remember, don't reinvent the wheel.